Hello and welcome to MTG Reads. I'm DP, author, MTG fan and voracious reader, here to help you find some of the very best of the written word in Magic the Gathering. You may notice a different backdrop this week, and that's because I'm in the process of moving the content production from the games room where I was sat here into the office, and I'll get sorted over the next few weeks. And the reason I'm not finished this week is mainly because of the fact that there were 194 articles that I've read through this week. That's not the reissue of news releases or just announcements. This is actual articles written across numerous websites and magazines. And one forthcoming event has certainly lit up a definite trend amongst those 194 articles. And that is the same day that this edition of MTG Reads is due to be published, should also be a new ban announcement from Wizards of the Coast. But before we get on to taking a look at why people are unhappy with card design, let's take a moment for an honourable mention for Jason Fleurant over at Channel Fireball. Jason has written an article about the secret of winning. It's a very short article taking a look at the mental attitude and mental health of how to approach Magic and improve, and is applicable to all formats. It's quite a short article, well worth a read, and if you like that, what I would also recommend is Will Jonathan's book called Mental Manner. Now, Mental Manner was a book, very much it's the only book on sport psychology for Magic the Gathering. So if you enjoy Jason's article, please take a look at Will's book as well. With that honourable mention out of the way, it's time to move on to the most prolific topic of the week, and that is the speculation about the forthcoming ban list and general unhappiness with Wizards' card design and the impact that that is having on the various formats. A great place to start are the two articles, one by Seth Manfield over at TCG Player and one by, and I am going to pronounce this wrong and I do apologise, Sorquixe over at MTG Arena Zone. These two articles complement each other very much, and they are very substantiated arguments on what should be included within this ban announcement. Sorquixe's article starts with an excellent summary of the position of Standard and why Zendikar Rising and the associated format rotation is so important to Standard and the health of the format going forward. In it, they explain the 6 cards that they would like to see banned and the one that should be unbanned. They also go on to take a look at what they think will be, which is frankly just one card. Seth's article takes a look at many of those cards that need to be banned, and there's a large overlap with Sorquixe's article, but also is asking the question whether Wizards really should ban them at this point, because it is only actually at this weekend that the Zendikar Rising is technically released, and a banning on the very first Monday would set a new record for Standard. The option, as they point out, is to leave it and let the Standard suffer because of the known poor card design. It's a tricky conundrum, and both articles complement each other well and are worth a read to understand the problem. But it's not just Standard that is suffering as a format at the hands of Wizards' card design. Filip Skórnicki over at Card Market is taking a look at the increasing prominence of Field of the Dead in Modern. Now, Field of the Dead has been banned in numerous formats, but it's certainly increasingly common in Modern. And what Filip does is looks at the balance between the downsides of that card and its upsides of creating 2/2 zombies. Despite the fact that there are multiple downsides, there are certain decks that can take massive advantage of that, and he goes through the different decks, taking a look at the impact and why Field of the Dead is becoming increasingly prevalent and increasingly powerful in the format. Now, he stands shy of calling for it to be banned, although with Wizards ban announcements anything could happen, so let's wait and see. But what Filip's article does do is look at how that balance on individual cards between up and downside is needed to be fine-tuned. And it shows why, with so many cards that don't seem to have any downside to them, the various formats are suffering. Meanwhile, Tomer Abramovici over at MT Goldfish has looked at a way that could save the impact to Commander at the very least. A lot of these bad card designs stay around for a very long time, and in non-rotating formats, a mistake that Wizard says we will just ban it out of Standard lasts forever. And so one of the ways that Tomer Abramovici is taking a look at managing his decks is by introducing a sideboard, something that doesn't exist in the format. Now he is looking at it primarily from a perspective of trying to adjust and tweak a deck before a game, not to counter somebody else, but primarily in a way of adjusting the power levels so that everybody sat around the table has more common standard for power levels and therefore gets a more enjoyable game. And one of the ways he talks about this is taking out combo cards and replacing them with other cards, also potentially swapping out commanders so that you actually have a less effective commander for that particular deck, even though it may well utilize the same mechanic. His final point is to take a look at the equivalent of having two different decks within one, which would mean swapping out potentially all the cards of one colour in order to replace them with another one, so you have two decks in one approach. My concern with this is whether it increases a homogeneous deck approach, because if 60% of the cards are exactly the same in multiple decks, we're not showing that much variance. One of the nice things about this article is it shows the potential that this sideboarding could allow us to deal with common recurring threat cards that come out. If you sit down at a table and there is one of the busted cards that is banned in other formats because that is the Wizard's way, sideboarding is a way in which you could introduce the countermeasures to deal with that, because historically with the deep card pool there are often cards which can cripple these overpowered cards that have no answer in Standard. So Tomer's article is certainly food for thought on a way in which Commander at least could address some of these more powerful cards without banning them. But most thought-provoking article of the week comes from Frank Lepore over at Cool Stuffing. Frank's article is entitled "Has Standard Become a Failed Experiment?" and for many journalists I would argue that that was a clickbait title, often denoting a poor article. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact that Frank is himself a previous Pro Tour player and very experienced, and his article is a very well substantiated argument on the current state of the game. How the card design means that 2 or 3 cards are overly dominant, and how they are accounting for over 75% of decks in common play. Where there are answers and arguments against some of those cards, they're not being used by alternate deck approaches to keep the format vibrant and enjoyable. Instead, they're being used by those Omnath and Euro decks because they're going to face inevitable mirror matches. This just means that those decks become more and more prevalent. And this is because of the card design, and it's having a negative impact on the game, which Frank details in his article. He explains why he is of the opinion that this is no longer a format which can evolve around those particular cards, because there's too much upside, not enough downside, and not enough answers. It's certainly a very thought-provoking article, and one that I may well pick up on in a forthcoming MTG Reads editorial. But for this roundup of articles, that's about it for the week. So, as usual, all of the links to the articles and to the ongoing Zendikar Rising story, which I highly recommend to you, all of those links are down in the text below. If you like what you've seen, please hit the thumbs up button and consider even hitting subscribe so that you can get routine updates from this channel. But for now, take care and happy reading.